Hi, my name is Luke Lane, and I want to talk a little bit about enactivism, what I call here the emergent learning theory. So a little bit of epistemology and history about this concept and this idea. We could go all the way back to Anaximander, who died in 546 BCE, and he had some ideas about definite things and indefinite things, and how definite things could become or could would turn into indefinite things, and indefinite things would also turn into definite things. Okay, and he taught this idea to someone named Heraclitus. Heraclitus was alive about a century later, and he adopted this concept and changed it a little bit. He thought indefinite things could become definite things. He thought that the world of being is false and the world of becoming is what is real. Okay, forgive me if I make this sound a little Buddhist. And then he's famous for the quote, "No man ever steps in the same river twice." He had a lot of influence on some more household names in philosophy. But a little bit more epistemology and history. We could go all the way, fast forward all the way to the 19th century. Here is the 19th century German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche. And he had some ideas about Heraclitus, certainly, that were favorable. He also agreed with his definition of reality in that we use our senses, and this use of our senses tricks us into thinking that there's permanence in the world that we live in. But enactivism becoming as a learning theory didn't happen until our authors here, Varela, Roche, and Thompson, who in their 1993 book, The Embodied Mind, Cognitive Science and Human Experience, says, quote, "Cognition is not the representation of a pre-given world by a pre-given mind." And I love this quote because the world is constantly changing, right? The enactment of a world and a mind, right? It's this symbiosis of these two things working together that creates what we call the world. And then the banking concept of education, which is really objectivism. I'm pretty certain. In the postmodern sense, we could say that this thought goes all the way back to Parmenides. And Parmenides said, "Only one thing exists, which is timeless, uniform, and unchanging." And I do believe that this objective reality, which predates Ayn Rand, certainly was influenced by this philosopher. Now, objectivism, my dictionary defines as a tendency to lay stress on the objective, right, or the external elements. The world exists outside of thinking about it, right? So there is some kind of inherent truth, and because of that, you can teach this truth. Just come to my class, and I will give you this truth, and I'll put it into your brain, and like a bank in some way of I'll give you something, and then you store this for later use. Enactivism learning can be kind of explained through an analogy, and I got this analogy from an article in the British Journal of Educational Technology, Instructional Design and Technology, grounded in enactivism, a paradigm shift. And I agree with this. It might be this paradigm shift that we're looking at, where people thought of objectivism, and then constructivism is now in, and then I think enactivism will be kind of the next thing. But here's a quick analogy that these authors use. Think about a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Okay, so making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, you need the jam, you need a butter knife, you need peanut butter, and it's all these things that have this particular order into how you make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. But what if you were a 6-year-old girl in China? The things that you have access to now change with some other kind of what you would consider household objects. And so this whole process is going to change. So when we talk about learning how to make a PB&J, it's going to be completely different based on your environment. And if that's not wild, think about making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich in space. I mean, wow, that would be kind of complicated. So, what the big ideas that you can take from this, right, are that environment plays a huge role in what we learn and how we experience just even our reality. So think about that with your students. There's no right answer, definitely in the present. Think about a teacher who is, before the women's movement, talking about suffrage, or 1,000 years ago, or even in some places today, talking about freedom of religion. I mean, this is all about where you are and what you learn. And I like this quote: learning is not simply a matter of students gaining access to new knowledge, right? It's not this just banking. I get more money and I put it into the bank. It's a transformation of their perspectives, their interpretations, and even their responses. We're trying to get people, our students, to think differently about themselves and their surroundings. In teaching, though, there's three big pillars. So there's review. Get students to review their essays. Self-reflection on your own part and on your students' part is very important because we're enacting with our environment, right? This document was something created in the past. So changing it is going to be wildly different. Our ideas now are much different than they used to be when we were writing it. Okay, so then online communities, using the internet, it's a huge place where you can find a whole bunch of global ideas. So get your students do digital citizenship definitely, and learn about these different online communities. And the last and the most important is real world application. Getting students to use their knowledge in real time and about real things and solving real problems. So that's Enactivism in a nutshell. Happy teaching. Here are just some of my references.